All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour. The Israeli tanks at this moment, we're given to understand, are stationed near the Gaza border amidst fears of an IDF ground offensive on Rafah. Israel has said that it is giving Hamas one last chance to reconsider a deal that it has offered. According to reports, Hamas is currently reviewing this latest Israeli proposal. Now, the efforts for fresh truce talks have come alongside overnight Israeli strikes on Rafah, where currently 1.4 to 1.5 million Palestinians at this moment have sought shelter because their homes were bombed to rubble. Now, the Red Cross agency has said that evacuation of the displaced Palestinians from Rafah is simply not possible. The Palestinian Health Ministry is further informed that at least about 32 Palestinians were wounded in the overnight Israeli airstrikes on Rafah. The Palestinian Authority's President Mahmoud Abbas and several international officials will also be in Riyadh this week for talks to push for a peace agreement in the Gaza Strip. The American Secretary of State Antony Blinken and the regional leaders, including Qatar's Prime Minister, Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister and Oman's Crown Prince and Bahraini officials will be attending the meeting. And these talks will be held on the sidelines of a World Economic Forum meeting. Washington's top diplomat Antony Blinken is also expected to visit Israel next week to sort the US-Israeli differences about this ongoing war in the Gaza Strip. The Blinken's meeting with the Israeli top officials will be centered around hostages held in the Gaza Strip and also an impending Israeli military operation in the southern Gaza city of Rafah.
Nice to see you.
Blinken, who earlier visited Israel in the month of March, had warned that its plans to invade into Rafah, where more than 1 million displaced Palestinians at this moment are sheltering, will pose severe risks to the population. While the diplomacy to end the war in Gaza is underway, China has also hosted the Palestinian unity talks between Hamas and Fatah. The Fatah is the movement of Mahmoud Abbas, who at this moment is the president of the Western-backed Palestinian Authority, which exercises very limited self-rule in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. The two rival Palestinian factions have failed to heal their political differences since Hamas had expelled Fatah from Gaza in 2007. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what is happening at this moment in the Gaza Strip, we're being joined by Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davies from Virginia. He's in fact a military expert and also the host of Daniel Davies Deep Dive on YouTube. No, Lieutenant Colonel Davis, thank you very much indeed, sir, for joining us on this broadcast and beyond. Let me, in fact, ask you this question that a lot of people at this moment are wondering about. Now, the Israeli offensive in the Gaza Strip has lasted for well over 6 months now, and yet, considering how small the territory of the Gaza Strip is, why do you think the Israeli military has failed in finding out where the hostages at this moment are held in the Gaza Strip?
The main reason is because fighting in an urban area is the most difficult type of combat in the world today, anywhere. I mean, we've seen that in the Ukraine-Russia war, in Bakhmut, in Avdiivka, several Donetsk, several other cities that just take an enormous amount of energy and troop combat and firepower. So the fact that most of the Gaza Strip is an urban area means that there is everywhere in the world for the Hamas fighters to hide, whether it's in tunnels, whether it's in rubble, whether it's in other buildings. And there's literally tens of thousands of these things where they could hide. And then there's also the issue of how you even identify who is Hamas and who is not Hamas. And if you are actually trying to take care of the civilian population and not kill innocent people, you've got to distinguish between the two. And that is very difficult to do.
You know, also considering that how small Hamas, the Gaza Strip is, it's smaller than the city of New York, for instance. Now, the other question that a lot of people have been wondering about is a potential ground invasion into Rafah. At this moment, we're given to understand that about 1.4 million Palestinians are perhaps sheltering in Rafah. And the Israeli forces, according to some of these videos that have now come up, we see their tanks and also their armored vehicles stationed very close to Rafah. Do you think, with the preparations that have been made, that the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is planning for a Rafah invasion that he's been talking about? Will he go ahead with it?
I don't see any question that he's going to go ahead with it. The only thing that I do see is lots of behind-the-scenes negotiations and diplomacy between the United States, the Arab regimes in the region, European regimes or governments, all of these people trying to come to some kind of understanding of and potentially stop this operation, or at least make sure that there's humanitarian corridors set up where the people can be protected. But I don't see any evidence that Netanyahu is willing to give in on this, nor any of his cabinet members for that matter, because they are just locked in, convinced that they can't win the war unless they defeat these so-called final 4 battalions in the Rafah area. But as I think I've said many times, it's a fool's errand, because it doesn't matter what they do in Rafah. They are creating so many more enemies than they ever take out of Hamas that the end state will probably be worse security-wise for Israel than it was on October 7th. That's the harsh truth.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Colonel Davis, for joining us and getting us that perspective there.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.